Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and welcome to another episode of the Power Hour.
How's it going, guys? Glad to be back. Maybe a little bit more of a hiatus than normal, but shit gets busy.
That it does. But I think overall we're still being more consistent than we were in the past.
Oh, way more. Even going every 3 to 4 weeks even is better. And for the most part, we've tried to do every 2-ish. So, whatever. It's good enough.
We're more consistent than the moon. That has a 30-day cycle. I could have went another way, but I decided to be classy and say moon.
Would the blood moon be its period?
Damn it, Jim!
Whoops. So much for classy.
And he wonders why I win all the debates.
God damn. No, because I fucked myself. That's how. I'm still cheesed about that last one.
Did you say cheesed?
Yeah.
This is how we're fucking starting this. You know what? I'm turning it off.
It shaped my onions, Brian. Look, we gotta get through this because, I'm a working man. I put my boots on one lace at a time.
You don't even have boots.
Yes, I do.
You have poorly put together, cheaply made, not even Italian shoes.
They might be from Payless.
Exactly.
Rest in peace, Payless.
God damn it. Let's just first hit up our Patreon questions. We only have 2 this time, but once again, thank you guys who have been supporting us. And if anybody out there wants to throw some shekels our way, we appreciate it.
You could add to this podcast as well. This professionalism in class that we show on a bi-weekly, when we can basis.
It's about as clear as a sales pitch as he's going to give. So,
as honest.
That's just true. So our first comes from Game Whisperer. Thank you, bud. He always throws us the most interesting, so I'll just...
It's never straightforward.
If your favorite Tekken character sang karaoke, what would they sing? Jim, I will let you begin this one. I got to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's first establish, do you have a just number one favorite Tekken character?
My go-to normally is Heihachi. So, what would he sing? He's kind of a boomer, so he'd sing something boomery. So,
can I make a suggestion what he'd sing?
Go on.
For those of you who have followed us,
Are you going to play Jungle Boy? God damn it! I knew it.
It's Tarzan Boy.
Whatever. Is Jungle Boy the one from Dexter's Lab?
It might be.
I think so.
So for those of you who have followed us, do you roughly remember what episode that was, Jim?
Yeah, I think it was about maybe... It wasn't 10 episodes ago. It was a little more recent than that.
I'm going to let it play very low until it gets to the chorus, which is the part most people know.
Oh, here comes that copyright strike.
That's why I'm keeping it low, and I'll just put in that one part.
Oh, no. We're not going to make our 40 cents.
So...
Oh, God.
Is it bad that I thought of this because it was the same type of guy singing it? Here you go.
Yes. So the same type of guy is what?
Samurai-looking guys, I'll say.
What?
Let me finish. From Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the one where they traveled back to Judo.
Heihachi's the old guy. He's not Yoshimitsu, who's got the sword.
Yeah, I know. He looks kind of...
Heihachi doesn't look like a samurai.
Give him a sword. What does he look like?
Just because he's Japanese doesn't mean he's a samurai, Brian.
I didn't say that. Does he wear wooden sandals on the bottom of his feet? No,
yeah, he does
else
wear
does that?
Samurais? Fucking god damn it.
What?
That's not a win.
We didn't get to our debate. Now, Jim.
That's not a win. That's just racist.
I've given you peanut butter. I've offered you Grand Slams. I'm running out of options.
Just feed me beer. Just feed me as cheap as shitty beer as you can.
But do you have a suggestion, since I had to save you there? And that was totally worth the bit.
Oh, God. I mean, you could go Kunimitsu and have her sing What Would the Fox Say, because she wears a fox mask.
I don't even know who that is, and I don't...
Right, apparently you don't 2013 meme, okay? Maybe you should catch up.
I'd rather
Or go
not.
back. I don't know which.
All right. Shit. So, my favorite character is between King and Brian Fury.
Yeah, you and fucking Brian Fury.
I love pissing you off with him. It's the funniest thing in the world. Just that long dash punch. I mean, obviously, Eddie Gordo's the easiest choice to always piss you off.
Well, yeah, Gordo's a prick. So.
He is. So I'll go for each one. I guess for King, what would I go for him?
Cats in the Cradle.
I guess you.
What if he's a folk singer, Bray? Folk at heart, but a wrestler outside to make the bills.
I think he would do La Bamba.
Why would he do La Bamba?
Isn't he Mexican?
I don't actually know. You know what? He might actually be a Mexican wrestler. So
I think he is.
yeah,
I could be wrong.
he's not the high flying luchador. He's like old
He's
school.
a luchador because I remember, especially in the newer games, he actually just put luchador mask, not the Jaguar or whatever.
What? It's a staple.
I know, but you can choose in the newer games different outfits for all of them.
Yeah, all right.
And for Brian Fury, I think it would be something cheesy like Top Gun, like Welcome to the Danger Zone, or Turn Around.
What, Berlin?
Or no, I'm sorry, I meant Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Or Total Eclipse of the Heart?
Yeah.
All right.
I just would see him having a go oddly soft side.
He would be that tough guy who just like listens to pussy music.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I can see that.
So that's the best I can give for options.
On this short notice, yeah.
Yes. So Whisper, I like the odd choices you're giving us, and
He keeps us on our toes. That's for goddamn sure.
I know there's going to be plenty of people who have picks that make much better logical sense.
Nah.
But yeah.
Details.
So the next one is from our buddy Astral, and essentially, what are our thoughts on game collecting burnout? Have we experienced it? And he's asking for a friend.
Yeah, how to get out of it. And I mean, honestly, I know I'm not in game collecting burnout to a fault. It'll probably be nice for my wallet if I did hit burnout.
You should be in burnout.
Yeah, I know. But I've hit like a minor burnout where like I used to be like a guy who would love going to thrift stores and Goodwills like a couple times a week after work on the way home. And if I found a game that I was remotely interested in for like $1 or $3, I'd pick it up.
Yeah.
And then eventually I hit the point where I'm like, I have all these games I have no desire to really ever touch unless we ever do it for the show. So I hit the point where like at least that kind of overly wasteful stuff. Like at least I collect games I want to play at this point, not just like, oh, here's some random shit.
Yeah, but you don't play even a quarter of the games you.
I put some time into all of them. I don't beat any of my games, but I play them. I don't have the time to beat games.
It's debatable.
I don't have the time to beat games.
It's debatable at best. I am someone who kind of did hit burnout. So just like Jim, I would hit up not so much flea markets, but thrift stores, any GameStop. Whenever I would just always peruse their cheap section, and it was that mentality of like, I'll get to the game eventually, or like Jim said, it was for the site. And where it's really bad, and we've covered this a few times, online sales kill me.
That's what's bad for you.
Because
I'm a physical freak, but you'll be like, oh, $5 game, $10 game, $5.
Well, that's the thing is like I'm now at the point. There's so often. Number one, every single month with the Xbox, or twice a month with the Xbox Gold thing, I get 2 free games. I got Xbox One game and 360. And regardless of what I think of the game, I'll just download it because then I own it
right,
for just the sake of like in case it goes away or whatever the case may be.
As long as you pay for Xbox Live, you'll have it.
Yes. So I get those at a minimum, so that's 4 games a month. And then I always check the deals, and when they have deals like I think I got like Witcher 3 for like $5. And I was like, well, I can't turn that down. So if it's in a $5 bin and it's a game I even remotely want to try, I'm buying it. If it's 10, it would have to be a game like one game I'm actually looking at right now. I still have on my list. I don't know if the sale's up. Far Cry 5. I love that series, and that's a game I'm going to get. It's $15 now. Anywhere else, it's still like 50 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't pull the trigger because I have literally a 3 terabyte hard drive. It's not filled, but it's getting there with like hundreds of games that are just sitting. So I'm at a burnout stage where I'm trying to just like proactively, I don't even want to look at the sales. Unless I'm actively searching for a specific game, I'm trying to avoid doing that. How do you stop yourself from doing that?
Or I think he's actually asking how you get over your burnout. I think he wants to get back into collecting.
I mean, I think instead of being a general collector of everything, like for me, my big thing is I really won't turn down a good horror game. Like horror's what I've said many times. Jim, he has terrible systems that are more niche, and he likes to collect
always comes back to my Turbo.
I'm saying you get a boner for it. If you saw games for it, you'd be like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get it. Ooh, it might be $1 more than I should pay, but I'm gonna get it because I get a physical copy." You'd be like, and take a terrible picture, or I don't know how to hashtag. So, if you find a specific game genre or for a very specific system, I think that's a way to get back into it. But if you're too general with it, you're never going to get over the Burnout.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to get over collecting Burnout, get a system you don't have yet. And then just start collecting for that. Yeah. Start as you do with every system you don't have. Start with the heavy hitters and then work your way down from there.
Yeah. And it's just really how much you really want to spend. That's what it always boils down to.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally...
Shit, you want a cheap system to collect for, get a CDI. System will set you back in a controller, but the games, ooh, boy, are they cheap.
For a good reason, Jim.
No, I'm very aware.
So, good luck getting back into that. Actually, if you want a system...
This is almost like... It almost feels like telling an alcoholic to start drinking again.
Here's a system. I don't know the collecting because we don't talk enough about PC games.
Right.
But just like with my Xbox, I feel like most people nowadays, you will just do the download off Steam or whatever.
Oh, dude, that's like a famous meme basically at this point where when there's a Steam sale,
yeah,
people are like, it's always just like, oh, buy wallet. And people buy, it's $3-5 games, then they buy hundreds of them.
Yes. I've done that too. And my PC, I can run some games pretty good, but I will go back and older games that never got to try. Steam and, GOG?
Yeah.
I do those dollar sales. Same deal. I have libraries, not nowhere near in the hundreds. I'm talking a couple dozen. But if you want to go out and get physical copies of old PC games, that could be that could just be an interesting collection, especially if you have the big box style.
Yeah.
Which may or may not come into play later on.
Foreshadowing?
Yeah, so hopefully we're not feeding a habit that's not good for you.
Just get the needle and put it in your arm.
Jim, don't encourage that.
What? By needle, I mean eBay.
Jim, don't encourage that.
I guess there's no good way to spend that, huh?
A globalist, Jim.
I was a globalist. God, just to go on an aside here, that is the most entertaining 4 hours you'll ever listen to.
Yes.
By far. That's been my gym listening, and it's gone over a couple sessions.
Yep. It's fascinating.
Oh, it's so good.
And we're not even going, if you know what we're talking about, then you know what we're talking about. I'll just leave it at that.
Just fucking Alex Jones on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree with anything he says,
you'll
but
be absolutely fascinated.
You will be fascinated. Guaranteed.
So, one thing I just realized, we never even talked about while we're drinking.
Yeah.
So, tonight kind of came about
accidentally.
Semi as a mistake. We were supposed to do it tomorrow. Jim just shows up.
Because you wrote TON instead of TOM. So I saw ton, and I'm like, oh, ton, tonight.
Yeah, but no one in the history of abbreviations has ever just...
Yeah, but you like to do your bullshit and be like, oh, I just started a new word. And you do that.
So I mimic your voice while writing to you?
Yes, you do. That's exactly what you do. The whole time you're just like, hey, blah, blah, want to come over, blah, blah, for power hour, blah, blah.
I mean, I do that, but at least I'm specific about when
I've known you long enough, you prick.
So... luckily, I did just over the weekend buy a variety pack from Susquehanna Beer Company. Surprise, surprise. I'm talking about another PA brewery. But we're starting off with their Hop Cell Lacerator. Yeah, that's what it says. So it's their West Coast style IPA. The general note I have for this...
Accelerator instead of accelerator. It's a car with the flames coming out.
I didn't see the dash. Well, I also think... what was the thing I always said?
Irregardless?
No, because that's a real word now. Look up in the dictionary. Dasani.
No, Dasnia.
Dasnia.
Yeah.
That's right. Stop picking on me because I have a disability. So
yeah, it's called stupid. You do not have
so
dyslexia.
we'll move on to a different beer after this, but what I can say is it's just a little bit more than typical hoppy IPA.
Yeah,
it's got a little bit more of a bite than some of the other IPAs we've tried or have had.
Yeah, it's hoppier, but it's still a pretty smooth drinking. So,
So just want to throw it out there before we move on to our first beer topic, and really our only beer topic because
it's kind of a slow season. Beer topics to find anything interesting outside of this brewery's releasing this new line. No one really cares.
Yeah. So
Unless you guys do care and you'll give us tons of views and money for it, then we'll talk about every single brewery.
Damn it, Jim. Don't sell out. Globalist. So this comes to us from fox5dc.com. Link below. I saw this right away. I had to tag Jim. This is one of his staples. Maybe you could say.
Well, this isn't a staple, but
this is.
You're just lumping it in with my love of shit beer.
Yes, because every time I go to your refrigerator, it's Natural Light, which is what we're about to talk about.
I've never had Natty Light in my thing.
You've had Keystone, Natural Light.
Keystone, I will fully admit.
And it's always just terrible shit. And now you're on this like seltzer water that's spiked, and it's terrible.
Oh,
it's refreshing.
It is refreshing. Depends on the flavor too, and the brand. White Claw is good. Stick with White Claw.
Anyway, Natural Light is releasing a 77-pack of beer, but it's only available in College Park, Maryland. So I just found that fascinating. A 77-pack of beer.
It's efficient.
It's this has
good for frat parties.
I just wanted to throw this out there as like, holy shit, that sounds crazy, and it makes complete sense. Because one of the biggest things when I would always throw parties here is I would be torn between kegs or just buy multiple cases. And it was always tough because the problem with buying cases, and this is for anyone who's a beer drinker knows, you have assholes who don't finish their cans, and you wind up with a million half-empty cans sitting around because somebody goes to the bathroom. Well, I'm not going to re-drink that beer, or they just put it down and forget it, and then it gets warm, and they're like, well, what, who the hell cares? Mm-hmm. So I understand it. I still think a keg is the way to go. And this is why I'm almost using this topic as a tangent that I just thought of, which is, when you're throwing parties, and granted, you don't throw bangers anymore.
No.
We're not sitting here getting everyone drunk doing keg stands.
Yeah, a bunch of dads over here.
But
not really partying anymore.
But I mean, the thing is, man, like the value of going to a half keg versus a full keg, because that's the other thing. You better make sure you have some real drinkers in your crowd.
Yes.
If you're gonna do a full keg, because I learned early, and I'm talking about parties with 60 or more people, and I would still by the end of the night lift up and be like, wow, there's still a decent amount of beer here. And that's a pain in the ass to return back to the beer store. Or you got to sit there and dump it out, whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. So what do you think in terms of if it's obviously it's college, they're throwing a frat party, think it's worth it for them to go out, get a 77-pack? I wish they would have it on here, which of course they don't, the price.
Yeah. It's weird they didn't have the price on there. But given like a case of Natty's normally like, what, $18?
It's really cheap. So
yeah, $15 to $18. You'd expect it to be like probably like $50 to $60 probably total.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. But I mean,
I think you know what that is. I think that's like a good backup. I think like you can fill a fridge with that, but then especially if you're like a frat, definitely get the case too, or not the case. Get the keg. I mean, fucking with frats. I was never in a frat, so. Yeah. I fully encourage frats to have full kegs just so more for me to freeload off of.
So this apparently will cost you $30 for a 77.
What?
Pack. So that's a damn. Actually, that's a. So I think for me,
what a steal.
Whenever I would rent kegs, and I had a buddy who worked at a beer store, so he could get me a discount. I would always spend between $90 and like $150, depends on the beer. If I was, what was ironic is we talked many times early on in this site about Lion's Head, and it's still a better beer than a lot of the other beers you're going to have, and that was always the cheapest.
But the cleanup for that.
The cleanup was always, and then it was like Rolling Rock was always dirt cheap, which always shocked me. It was cheaper than like Bud and Miller.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but I guess that's because those two were just popular. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, $30. I know what we just said about the cans, but dude, you get two cases or two of these 77s.
Get three of them. That's a full keg right there.
It is. So, holy shit.
That's the way to go. If you don't mind, setting your house on fire after instead of cleaning up, but
now let me ask you this. When you see something like this, it's obviously we've talked about many gimmicks on here, like Mad Elf and some of these other beers having bottles.
The $100 bottle, yeah.
Obviously, the gimmick here is like they're just acknowledging, like, we know we're shit beer and we're just here for drinking for college parties,
right?
Is that kind of refreshing to see? Because
Yes.
right now you have this, like, I saw more billboards, and we've talked about this before, but the the Bud Light, like, we don't use corn syrup, or it just says like Miller uses corn syrup, like Bud, like underneath it. And I'm like, as a huge billboard, I'm like, okay, they're still really trying to drive that home. It's like you're all kind of the same quality. Why are you acting like you're better than one or the other?
Which, if you check the link below, you can see how we prove that scientifically.
Damn it, Jim. Yes, corn syrup reduces the sugar. Any way you reduce the sugar, doesn't matter. Rice. Corn
Damn
syrup.
it.
But no, I like this because it's kind of like the joke about the Keystone. I might bust your balls.
When you had Keith Stone as the mascot, and he was
hilarious.
like a white trash guy.
Yeah. And they know it was like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Hey, scumbags drink us.
I almost want them to be a little more, like, sincere. Like, we know what we are.
Yeah.
We're here for drinking mass amounts of our beer.
I like this gimmick way more than Dilly Dilly.
That's also because it's now been abused and annoying. It
was annoying when it started.
You know one commercial I'm still not tired of?
Go
and
on.
it's old, and it's been overdone.
Is it Hump Day?
It is Hump Day.
God damn.
Because it went away for a little while, and then I saw it again, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot how much I love this.
Yep. And the Bob We Oughta Baby Eats a Boy. I was like, oh shit, we're going back to the early 2000s here.
I don't know. Hump Day is still one, though. It's never gotten me.
A classic is a classic.
Yes.
What can you say?
Which always makes me think, and I know we've talked about the same deal about commercials during Super Bowl, but man, like, there was something about the Budweiser frogs.
Yeah.
It's like, why? And none of them need publicity the way they probably
Or the
used
Penguins with the Doobie Doobie Doo, or the What's
Yeah.
Up guys.
It's amazing.
There used to be thought put into it,
Used to be.
and now they cater.
The What's Up guys got annoying because that whole thing got annoying.
That lasted way longer than it should have, too.
Yes. But then you get, like, what? What was it? Bud Light or Milk? I think it was Bud. That was like, it just had, like, Pitbull.
That ruined an entire year of sports. Because every goddamn Flyers commercial break, every single one had that Pitbull commercial at least once. When I watch hockey, I think Pitbull.
But Jim, they go so well together.
I know. I'm sure it worked out well. That's why they did so many more of them.
So let us know what you guys think. I would be shocked if anyone actually from that area listens to this. But if this is something that, whether you're currently going to college or you did, that would have been perfect for you, we'd love to hear stories about it. So send us your way.
God, I can only imagine how many half-drunk cans you're going to be cleaning up filled with, like, cigarette butts in them. Or people that accidentally drink the shit.
Friggin' nightmare. Drink your beers. Finish beers. That's my only advice to anyone out there.
That is, like, one of the worst things you can do
Just
at a party.
finish beer. Like, that's it. That's your only rule.
Dump it. Even dump it if you don't want to finish it.
Yeah. All right. So, moving on.
This is a little old. It's a follow-up.
It's old, but it's also, we're going to kind of expand it. I won't state where we're getting this because it's all over the place, and you can probably find, honestly, better links. But Cuphead, Forza, and Gamepass is coming to Switch. I mean, we already talked about Gamepass. They're confirming more and more games for it.
Yeah, there was like some French site like called Jivu or some crap all like that, and it said Forza and Cuphead's coming to Switch, which awesome.
No, yeah, Cuphead is, of all the games, like, that makes the most sense on the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I will be interested to see. And, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who have their opinions about the Switch battery. But how is it going to run with Game Pass? Some of these games, like Cuphead, although it's still 2D, that thing is friggin' detailed.
Oh, yeah.
And even Forza especially, that would be by far, arguably right next to Skyrim, the most graphics-heavy game they have on the system.
Mm-hmm.
If they put that on, when they put that on there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to come from that. I can't tell because I don't read French, but in the same article that Jim's referencing, and I'll put the link below, and I'm sure there's like a...
You guys can use Google Translate, whatever.
Yeah,
God knows we can't be
there's
bothered.
things mentioned here specifically about Halo and Gears of War. So,
Which, I mean, if you get the Xbox branding on there, it makes sense to have the heavy hitters. So,
and a good turnaround, something me and you talked about, like games we'd like to see on the Switch, a lot of them could be accomplished with a rare replay.
yeah.
if you get that from Game Pass, then you take care of the rare games. Then you figure out a way to get GoldenEye on there, and you got all the rare games you really want.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft owns Rare, so that's the way you can get around it and license it and get it back on a Nintendo console.
Yeah. But this brings
maybe
me...
even some little bit of this to get it onto an N64 Mini, if they have a little working relationship going there, possibly. I don't know why I'm docking right now, but
You are docking, and I think your hopes are a little too high for that. And
I'm an idea man, Brian.
you're not.
I'm an idea man and a people pleaser.
You're a guy that hears ideas, you throw something in it, and somehow it makes the idea worse.
Look, erroneous, all right?
So, all I'm saying is, so we know we're going to see a lot more games like this come out for Switch, and not that it's tied to the Game Pass, but a lot of news has also come out about Resident Evil 0, 1 Remake, and 4 coming to Switch. So you're going to see more and more games like that.
For a delightful upcharge.
Dude, that's the thing that blows my mind.
Here's the biggest thing that, besides the fact that it's actually this expensive, is, like, you make a thing like, I was like, oh, fucking Nintendo tax strikes again. And all of a sudden, it's not Nintendo, it's Capcom, it's your publishers. I know. I get it.
No, it's Nintendo.
But but you can't tell me that when they release 10-year-old games like Axiom Verge for $30, like that's not an upsell.
We're going through all the Resident Evil games because of how much I love them, and I'm someone who's now bought almost every Resident Evil game in every version I could, even when it's the remake on the GameCube and then the HD remake, and then like. I keep being that asshole who keeps rebuying it, but I made sure when I got the Resident Evil 0 and HD remake, I think it's called like the Origins packet.
Yeah.
I got that at a time back in earlier at a discount. Mm-hmm. If anyone goes out and pays full price, please don't. Like that's why they keep doing stupid shit.
If you have it on another system, please buy it for that.
Yes, don't. Switch is great. I love its portability, and that is the best seller for this game. But please, don't let that be the port you're experiencing Resident Evil in. I mean, I think that's fair to say.
I mean, it's not even that big a deal because you're talking about older games. Like, you can polish a turd so much, but at the end of the day, you're working on graphics that were built in the 6th gen. So,
but granted, those graphics look pretty much similar or better to some of the graphics that Switch first party comes out.
It's because it's more cartoony. Oh, it's all going to be dark and whatever. So, but even with all that being said, like
is it hot in here? Because you just got burned so bad.
Nah, I don't care. But even with all that being said, like still, like there's no reason that you couldn't fit both games onto the Hue card. And I know there's people who are like, oh, well, this is 16 gigs and this is this many gigs. Because 0 is going to come on the card, and then the remake of 1 you're going to have to download fully. So it's not like you even get both games fully on the card.
No. And
then Resident Evil 4 is going to be its own release, which, why? Like, why couldn't you just bundle them all together? And it's Capcom nickel and diming people.
It absolutely is. And I don't know.
And there's no reason to buy any version when the Wii one's out there, so just go for that.
Which is the worst version.
Best.
Jim only likes it
best
because he couldn't figure out how to aim properly without.
I eventually got it, but why would I?
Because
we'll talk about this later. We'll talk about this when we talk about Resident Evil 5 and 4.
Worse graphics and sound. Just gonna leave it at that.
It's the same sound.
It's worse because it came out like 5 years. It's terrible. So you're gonna see, I think, a lot more of this, and like we've tried to say in the past, people who are complaining about the price. Just don't buy it. Like, that's the way this shit stops. If people keep buying it, it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So, whether it's Capcom, Nintendo, yeah, you're getting used.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're getting they a lot of people are really shameless with the Switch. I will say that.
And then when the new Switch comes out next year, we're all going to be like, what?
Yeah, I'm having fun with my Switch. I have no complaints.
Yeah, I know, because you're definitely not using your Wii U.
Yeah, my Wii U has...
What do you put on, maybe 10 hours?
No, I put way more than 10 hours into that.
All right, 20 hours. So
way more than 20 hours, Brick.
So...
I had like a good 8 months with it before I got my Switch.
So what you're
of like
saying
of like
is,
consistent play of like being my main console.
So what you're saying is, I was right again, because that money could have been. I would have even supported you had you got some terrible games for TurboGrafx. At least that would have been unique.
One, there are none. And two,
one. You know what? Just to piss you off, I'm gonna have you keep collecting, and then we are gonna do a TurboGrafx months and only use emulated versions.
no,
Yep.
nope,
And I'll be like, Jim, look how much smoother this works.
no. I can get it in RGB.
This controller's terrible.
I can get it in RGB. It's fine.
Nah, I'll make you do it, emulate it.
Fuck that.
And I'll only have footage from emulated. And I'll just have you hold up your little case. I'm like, hey, guys, it's all emulated.
We're like, nah.
That'll happen this year. Don't worry. I have to do it to Jim now.
Well, you know, you can. When I play through them, so I can learn about the game.
Yeah, you got nothing.
So no, you can do the game gadget, and I'll just play it on my real system and enjoy it that way.
That's fine. And I'll be like, hey, Jim, guess what? You're still trying to collect it. How much you pay for that? You know how much you paid for this?
Jesus Christ! What are you gonna be? If you got a Raspberry Pi, you do these consoles
I don't need
here.
a Raspberry. Why do you even need a Raspberry Pi? You got a computer. That
Well,
can do it.
obviously,
Yeah.
that's what I should actually start writing anytime that someone mentions a Pi when we talk about some hardware.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, well, why do that when you can get a Raspberry Pi? Well, why get a Pi when you have a computer?
I don't get, and there's still people to this day, and we've talked about the PC Master Race, Pi, emulators, all these people. One thing I don't get, I have my computer hooked up either to a regular computer monitor, or I can take my 55-inch TV and run an HDMI cable to it. Now, granted, this is only my setup, but then I'm playing the game with my HDMI Xbox controller or PS4 and playing it on my regular TV. There's no need for a Pi. But I get the convenience of something much smaller than a tower. So, in closing, Jim sucks.
What an argument!
All right, Jim, you just sit here and talk to the camera while I get some more beer.
All right. God, friggin' damn you! All right, so while he's doing that, I do have to do a couple shout outs and thank yous real quick. So I want to thank Dan from Console Wars for having me on his show. Unfortunately, Brian, I did not fully fuck it up. It went a little off the rails. I will say that, partially my fault, but not my. But yeah, I mean, I just bring such good luck with me everywhere I go. But it was actually a really fun time, and Dan, as always, is just like the nicest guy in the friggin' world. And if you're not following Console Wars yet, please do. And I actually got to meet Greg too. So he's not with the page anymore, but got to meet him, got to drink a couple beers with him. Super cool guy, and he's doing a lot better. So awesome to see that all around. And also to our buddy Travis, Hibiki TMD. He had me on his podcast, The Reset Button, recently. So thanks again for that, bud. I'm actually dragging ass today because that went a little way past my bedtime. But I'm a little baby at this point.
And don't worry.
I need my shut-eye.
And don't worry, next time if you want to have the real star on, I'll come on.
Ooh, this is tasty.
Yeah, right now we moved on to the Susquehanna Shady spot. It's their lemon shandy. And anyone that's had a shandy, it's just, it's almost like lemonade in a beer.
Yeah. I mean, it just instantly reminds me of, Leinenkugel Summer Shandy.
Yeah.
The first sip I took. Nice, sweet, but like not overly sweet, luckily. I'll see how it is by like halfway through the beer.
And you're not going to see it on the camera, but
oh, there is a lot of
plenty of sediment.
Wow.
So, it's like a lemon came in our beer. So,
well, I've had worse things come in my mouth. I'm right.
Stop talking about your Uncle Gary.
I don't even have an Uncle Gary that I know of.
Jim,
that I remember.
It's not your fault.
That I haven't.
What's wrong with us?
That's a delightful thing to joke about.
So moving on from our favorite site, Kotaku.
Yeah, we're getting desperate for topics when we're pulling off to Kotaku.
So Jim threw this out there, and this is something I did see swirling around Twitter. I've said it many times, Jim's a Twitter guy. I just catch stuff here and there. But an unknown NES game found after 30 years, and it seems to be a wrestling game.
Yeah, it's called UWC, which is Universal Wrestling Corporation, which was like the fill-in name when Turner bought WCW. So we're talking about a very specific set of time. And yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen too much of the gameplay per se. It looks like kind of a standard wrestling game of the air. One of the cooler things about it, though, is the roster. Because It has Jimmy Jam Garvin on it.
Go on.
Thank you, Brian. And like beautiful Bobby Eaton. So it's just got this random ass roster besides the Road Warriors, Ric Flair. Okay, here we go. Yeah, you have
Yeah, they don't have the names underneath them, but
you have Animal, Hawk, Sting, Jimmy Garvin, Bobby Eaton, Lex Luger, Ric Flair, and Barry Windham.
And Mr. Perfect.
There's no Mr. Perfect.
Was that not who? Hold on.
That's beautiful Bobby Eaton right there, Brian.
That's not Mr. Perfect?
That's Barry Windham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mr. Perfect wasn't in WCW until the late 90s, Brian.
so neither Jim or I watched the video, but what I'm reading is that the YouTuber Archon 1981, he got a copy of this, and I'm really fascinated that by now, with the way the internet is, more of this hasn't come out. Like, there has to be a ton more of unreleased games.
Well, it's always comes out like piecemeal. Where like how like a couple months ago we had that the ROM be released of SimCity for the NES.
Yeah.
So going back to like the whole game preservation conversation kind of deal, like it's cool that there are these still random ass ROMs and prototypes sitting out there for shit that it's in someone's garage or at the bottom of a box or something.
Yeah. I'm also I always have I don't know what I don't doubt that this is real, but I always have super skeptical hippo eyes when I see this shit and think, could it just be faked?
Yeah, it very well could.
And once again, this is without really digging into the video and how he came about it and all that. I just think, like, how easy would it be? Because how often do we see now people remaking NES games?
Oh, yeah. Like, you can easily do sprite swaps, and I'm sure the game engine probably isn't that hard to either lift off another WCW or WWF game kind of deal like that.
Yeah. Jim, can I make one mention?
Go on.
I'm going to have to put a picture up. And this is something I just noticed. But this guy, Archon, looks like if Jim and Benicio del Toro had a baby.
Ooh. Benicio, if you're out there.
He looks like he could relate to you, Jim.
Yeah, you know what? I can see that. Poor fucking bastard.
So I'm going to put the picture up, and I'm going to have Jim.
So I have to do that face, or I have to do...
Oh, you do. Yes, you do. So it's just something that, as I'm skipping through the video, I'm noticing. So I had to throw it out there. I do like this, like Jim's saying, from a game preservation. So here's my question: when we find when games like this are found, and even though they're not official released, I know hardcore game collectors love to find all those things. Like when you have a misprinted game, you find those versions.
Right.
So when you find these, do they become part of the official list, even when it's an unreleased thing?
I don't think it goes on, like, say, if you're like a collector guy going for like an official like North American release list.
Sure, not official. I'm saying that's exactly what I'm saying.
If you're like a completionist and you see something like this, like I can't see them not going and buying a repro of it or something like that. Because I'm pretty sure SimCity eventually got like a repro kind of release deal like that. So
now that you saw this, and we've obviously expressed we're big fans of wrestling, if a repro came out for a reasonable price,
I'd be tempted.
What's the max you'd spend on it?
Probably 30.
But that's not. You'd spend 30.
I'm talking with like a boxing manual. I'm talking the full shebang.
But it's a repro at that point.
So
my point is, like, I can understand spending on a closed-in box for value.
With repros, you're basically spending for the effort that people went about to make these things.
I know, but you're looking at the game right now. You would spend $30 on this? This is why you bought a goddamn Wii U 12 years after it came out and wasted way too much money on it. I rest my case, folks.
$30, not that bad.
$30 is terrible for this.
Not that bad. For a piece of history? For history, Brian?
It's not. If you spent that much on the actual cart he found, I would say okay.
Oh, he can put that up for like $1,500 because some crazy NES guy will fucking buy it. Like the people who bought the like that consortium that spent $100,000 to get like a sealed copy of Mario Brothers. There's worse than me out there.
People are willing. Just the same people that are willing to spend, and this gets into the collector mentality, like on baseball cards and the rarity of them.
That went in the toilet. No, there's the bubble's gonna burst on game collecting eventually.
Hey,
if you want to wait 20 years and come back to it and still have an interest in it, that's when you can strike.
No, and here's the deal. I'm not trying to you can have interest in whatever you want. Spend your money on whatever you want. But it just acknowledge that it's silly.
Oh, I call myself mentally ill all the time. Trust me.
Well, I mean, you have plenty of other reasons than game collecting to call yourself that.
What, like... Never mind.
Do I need to go down the list, Jim?
His number one porn collection?
That's not mentally ill. That's just disturbing.
Good thing I don't have to have search histories on a computer anymore.
Just don't hack Jim's computer. Hack his computer.
No, I don't. My computer is only used for this site at this point. I don't put anything on there that isn't necessary. That thing has to last.
Damn it. All right. Well, let us know what you guys think. If when you heard about this, we're excited. Especially, we know we have a lot of fans that are into wrestling. What would you guys be willing to pay? Well, click on the link below. Watch the video. Would you pay $30 for a closed inbox repro, or would you be more reasonable and realize it's kind of not a knockoff, but it's like...
I wonder how much Jimmy Garvin would pay to actually see himself in a video game.
Is he even still alive?
Yeah.
Oh.
He's not looking too good, but he's still alive.
What are the chances he's ever picked up and played a game?
Well, regardless, Brian. He's a wrestler. They're very vain
so you're
people.
using a word that you said isn't a word.
They're very vain people.
So, all right. The next two segments are recurring, and I'd like to call this the episode of...
God, I wish I didn't fuck myself last podcast.
So Jim, last podcast, for those of you, if you didn't watch it, you can click the link below, and I'm going to put this here. And Jim had this master plan. He was going to get me. He was going to get me real good.
I had a good one.
In the overrated, underrated section, we always go over, we each take a side now. One of us overrated, one of us underrated. So Jim was going to be a smart guy and say, I'm going to pick Brian's favorite game, Resident Evil. And I'm going to make him talk about how it's overrated. And you know what? It was really tough for me because I was like, fuck, how am I going to say this? I'm letting him go first.
Well, I don't think we need a detailed recap of this.
So in the end, like every debate, I won. But this time I won without even speaking because Jim decided to take the wrong side.
Because I forgot what I set up.
Listen, I know I'm rambling on this, but it's worth saying, Jim, because what is about to happen is a reverse for our two bits, which is better and overrated, underrated. So which is better, Jim? The first one.
Right.
The Sega Genesis or the N64?
Genesis.
Just like that.
Better library.
Okay.
And I love me the N64, don't get me wrong.
No, so what you're saying is the N64 is not that good because it's losing out to a system which...
Pretty sure I didn't say that.
So... Because we've established on the site many times over, and our fans especially, that the Genesis is under the Super NES by far. And we've already established most... And
we've also established that it's just RPG dorks who didn't get to leave the house.
Most ports of games were always better on the Super NES, except for like 3 examples, which I know you'll throw Aladdin out there, because meh. But my point is, we've established that, so... In the hierarchy, you're saying, like I've said before, N64 is down there.
Like I said, if you want to see which games are better between the two systems, go sub to our buddies at Console Wars, because that's basically what they do.
Yeah, it is. And Super NES usually wins.
Incorrect.
So you're just flat out Sega Genesis is better than N64.
Yeah.
Even as a couch co-op multiplayer?
Couch co-op multiplayer, well, you know what? As far as co-op goes, Genesis, I don't know. That almost might be a wash at that point. Now, just straight up like couch party multiplayer kind of stuff.
Just couch multiplayer.
Couch multiplayer and 64.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's adapters out there, and I did a video on that before too, for the Genesis to have 4-player gaming, but it's built in. The games are designed for it. Blah, 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 blah. So yeah, N64 has it there. But just in the grand scheme of like diversity of the library, overall quality of the games that you get, and hell, you can even say controller. Genesis is better.
Back the fuck up for 1 second. Did you just make it sound like there's a hair of the Genesis controller over the N64? Did you just really...
I'm a N64 controller fan. I like the controller.
What fucks me up about you saying that is you said it because you so believe it. It's not even... If you were saying it to piss me off, I know the tone in which you would have said it. Jim.
Look, Brian, people call
here's the
Galileo crazy,
I'm
all right?
fine with
People
the
call
fact-
the great minds of our generations crazy
I'm fine
people.
with you being a defender of N64 and terrible systems. I can get over a lot of bias you have because of how you grew up with games. But if you can't be honest, then you're fucked up. That's all. If you're gonna sit there and act like, oh man, in gaming controllers, it's like, man, Genesis could be here and N64 is right underneath. Are you? Fuck.
I'm so glad I worded it that way.
You didn't even do it on purpose. That's my point. If you did it,
Brian, everything that I do is in some way to disappoint you.
That's just because you generally disappoint everyone, Jim. My point is, God damn it, I can't believe you just fucking... Okay, so you just broke my goddamn head with that.
Man, I almost turned this one around on you just by my jackassery. It's fucking great.
So I completely agree Genesis is better than N64. I think of one of the biggest reasons is 20 years from now, when we're older and really not even in collecting scene...
Hopefully, dear God, please. I hope I'm not still wasting my money on this shit.
You still will be.
Probably.
But
I have so few hobbies.
Our kids and kids of the next generation, I think, like, will go back and still go hard on Genesis and those games because they just age so much better. I think they'll be the generation that kind of completely says like
that whole fifth gen, that whole generation aged terribly.
Oh yeah.
The Saturn, PS1, N64, like.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's part of why I think Genesis is better. And this is because I wasn't sure where you were going to go. Was I just think its longevity and how it aged is much better.
Oh, yeah.
Now, and also we've covered this. And I know you're not going to admit it, but both of them kind of have rougher sounds. So the Genesis has its unique sound.
Well, yeah, Genesis has its unique sound, but it's easy, and a lot of companies, especially Western developers, were very lazy, so they didn't really put a lot of effort into it, and the games do sound like shit.
Yeah.
And the N64, of course, is going to sound worse than everything else that's on an optical disc because you're not going to have that quality.
Yeah. And of course, someone's going to point out, like, the 5 games that are great on the N64 sound-wise. Just be honest. It has
a lot of great soundtracks on it.
Once again, just like the same guy.
Just because they're not as clear and fully like ripped out of an opera hall.
That's a big deal. You're making it sound like just because they sound like some shit's getting scratched against a goddamn wall, but there's some melody in the background that you can kind of make out.
If you
doesn't mean it's bad.
If you layer enough MIDI tracks on top of each other, you can have something sound good. You can still be a genius with that shit.
Jim,
it might be even more impressive because you have less to work with.
I know you're part of the globalist, but can you just admit for once?
Look, Bri, the pig, half-human embryos are trying to harvest out organs from the babies that they keep alive for 2 weeks because it's more money for they to keep it that way.
Jim, you're kind of like right now.
The globalist out there!
You're like Eddie Bravo arguing that the earth is flat. And I'm just trying to bring in reason. Like, just admit that you're fucking with me right now. Or that you realize what you're saying is crazy. And that you're just doing it from a biased standpoint. That's all you gotta say. That's it.
Globalists.
So,
I used to have 10 Swiss bank accounts, and they all got closed after they called me the Sandy Hook guy.
So, I'm sure there's people out there that love the show on N64 and will defend it to the death against the Genesis. This was, once again, completely aimed at Jim because it's his 2 favorite consoles.
Yeah, 2 of my favorites.
Yeah. But moving on to the real Jim letdown.
This is a toughie.
And I'm going to get it right this time. Overrated, underrated. For Jim's favorite game, although it flip-flops from year to year to this and Star Fox. Streets of Rage 2, Jim. And you are going to be overrated for this game. Because we know you're not a true fan of it, and that I'm better at it than you. So, let's hear how Streets of Rage 2 is overrated.
Here's the thing. Have you played Streets of Rage 2 even once?
Yes, many times.
Do you ever need to go back to it more than once? You play it once, you've played the game. Like, sure, some can consider it fun. And even I on occasion will say, that's a pretty good game. But is there ever really a reason to be like, oh, I'm going to find something new out of this very straightforward and someone could say lazily done improvement? Now, sure, they revamped everything, but did they really change anything up that much besides giving you maybe one more special move, maybe giving you one more character? At the end of the day, it's still just, they took Final Fight once again and just made it look even more like Final Fight this time. Really, it's not like they innovated. Sure, anyone can make a fun game, and it is a fun game. Some could say it's one of the best of the genre. But is that even that good of a genre? It's kind of like a genre for dummies. Let's put it that way. Because you just need, I got my one button, walk to the right, punch, 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 walk to the right, punch, 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 punch. Eventually you need a little more meat on your bones, bruh. You need to really simulate yourself more. And there's plenty of other smaller games out there. Like, you want to waste your time with a game, you'll play the same thing over again. At least play maybe something like RoccoW, where you're playing human players who will always make
You
it.
need to stop right there because you suck at that fucking game. And if you don't stop,
I am fantastic at
if you
that
don't
game.
stop blowing that game.
Fine. Maybe you can play something like Tetris 99, where the result will always be
Another
something
game
different.
where you can't even come in first.
I got the second. It's very hard to get in first.
You know what's not first? Second. And that's where you keep ending up. Just like on here.
If you're not first, you're last.
Exactly.
Ricky Bobby.
Basically. So go on. Keep telling me why you hate Streets of Rage 2.
And like you said, if it was on any other system, imagine that soundtrack but coming through a system that isn't a pain in the ass to produce music for.
You mean like a better system?
Just other systems.
But
Other systems with easier to produce sound.
like Super NES with a better system?
Well, it has easier to produce sound, obviously.
Okay, so yeah,
yeah.
Super NES better system.
No, we're not saying that. But
That sounds like what you're saying to me.
it just comes down to the fact that everyone out there is always like, it's definitely a lot of nostalgia, too. Like, do you think kids these days care about Streets of Rage 2? Is it really that timeless if future generations can't go back to it? Say a game like River Raid. You give River Raid to a baby, they can have fun with it because it's simple enough, it's accessible enough. But if you give a 7-year-old these days a game like Streets of Rage 2, are they really going to care? No, they're going to put it down and go back to Fortnite. So, how timeless really can a game like that be?
So, you're right. It is overrated.
See, I win. I win.
So,
Wow, I turned both of these around. Oh boy.
all right, Jim. So, I hear your comments, and I knew deep down you always did hate this game because how you're never better than me at it. So, I might as well point out it's the best fighting game on the Sega Genesis. And we've established on this channel, Sega Genesis is basically a sports game system that has a few other genres, but it's what it does best.
I mean, it's got every genre on it. It's got every genre.
I didn't interrupt you, so yeah. How about you be goddamn civil?
There. I guess we're in the court of law here.
So
You interrupted me when I said Rocket League, goddamn it.
yeah, because that deserved an interruption.
Objection.
So it's the best fighting game on the system. And to your
Beat 'em up, not a fighting game.
You're correct. Beat 'em up. And some could argue, and I may throw an argument out there for various reasons, it could be the best beat 'em up of the 16-bit era over the Super NES games. Super NES games in general, they flow a little better for beat 'em ups, but this one happens to be just the full package because, as we've established also on this channel, the one thing that makes a game more timeless, and you can forget about control, gameplay you can kind of play around with, but if you have a soundtrack that is memorable, excuse me, if you have a soundtrack that is memorable, and once again, I'm going to go out on a limb here, if it's not the best soundtrack on the Sega Genesis, it's within the top 3. Maybe you could throw one of the Sonics in there, and I'm sure there's a whole other litany of games, but there's no doubt this has probably the best soundtrack, track for track on that system. And that's saying something for a system that doesn't have a lot of games with great soundtracks. So what I'm trying to say is you take a game with the most underrated soundtrack from a system that didn't produce always those great soundtracks. This really competed with the Super NES on that. And it made it, just from that alone, timeless. Because people had to remake the game and do remixes. And we've even done videos on the top 10, or was it 20, soundtracks.
I think it was 10 from the overall series.
Top 10 from the overall series. And 8 of them were from Streets of Rage 2. If not 9. I can't remember the exact number.
7 or 8 of them.
So this was also the pinnacle of that series. 1, it was good. Had some flaws. Way too hard in some spots. Characters were meh. 3, just bullshit. You can throw that out. But 2, you had the perfect cast. And, you had your favorite girl, Blaze. And I had Max, because that's who I'm best with. And that's who I could always do better than you as. So you put all these factors together, and you really want to point out a game that makes a Genesis. If you ever tried to make that argument that Genesis is better than Super NES, this is going to be in that top 5 list of games you got to point out and say, look what we got. So when you have a game that's the pinnacle of everything that Super Genesis could do at the time, from a graphics, from a sound, from a control, and shit, I'll even throw this in there for your precious little system. This is one of those few games that could deal with this shitty 3-button controller to the Genesis, because you didn't need more buttons, so you didn't have to go out and spend more money on a controller. You could just play it stock. So for all those reasons, I win again.
Now that that's done, I win the impossible to lose argument.
Jim, you have yet to win an Overrated, Underrated, and I win.
No, I'm going to say I won this one.
I'm
pretty sure I won. I'm pretty sure our army of Super NES fans that follow this goddamn page in spite of me will happily agree with me. And if not, you're all fucking hypocrites. Every last one of you.
Jim, we've seen what people want from the People's Champ. People have been cheering me on in some of these things. I mean, it's undeniable. There's blue meanies and then there's rocks. That's all I'm going to say. Fine, you can be your Kevin Owens if you want. Who's now just trying to be Stone Cold and Jericho and all these people taking little bits from all of them.
Hey, he does a nice stunner. What can I say?
He's never done a stunner like Stone Cold did to Scott Hall. Until you do that.
Well, you need to have a Scott Hall to sell it for you like that.
Well, this whole brand right now is nothing.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So, let us know what you think. Obviously, we both love the shit out of the game, but if you are someone out there who does legitimately feel Street Fighter H2 is overrated,
love to hear it.
I would love to hear it. And I think for the points you were trying to make, I'm trying to think if any of them were actually legit.
I love when you do your counter arguments to anything I do. You always have to get your little digs in there. It's always with those little fucking digs. When you say, because it's always a backhanded kind of thing, and you know what the fuck you do.
Oh, I know.
When you're just like, you know, when it's the best game on a shitty system, I'm just sitting here just like,
why do you think I'm
I debates? I know.
No, one thing you did say, and it is honest, the game is fun as hell, but honestly, we've established this. There is no reason to go back to play other than
just how fun it is.
Yeah, it's like you do play it once, you're like, okay,
right,
I got it. And
like if you're not a beat 'em ups fan and you like play it, like it's the best one to play, but even then you'd be like, oh, okay, I did this.
I will say, and I do believe it, not to piss you off, but I do feel that beat 'em ups tend to be smoother, and I like the way they control on Super NES.
Wrong.
Because a lot of times you have more abilities on those games because of the controller. Like you have more grapple abilities. You have a few more things that are better. And I'm someone, I've said with you, I love Streets of Rage. That's still my favorite beat 'em up of the era. But it's that game. It's not. I'm not going all the beat 'em ups on the Genesis and saying I love them.
Right.
I'm saying specifically this one. So yeah, I would love, other than unless you just have a general hate of.
And I mean,
Genesis
there's really bad, obviously, beat 'em ups on the Genesis. Like you have like EX Mutants or X Mutants, whatever you call that, and fucking.
No, there's plenty of other good. I mean, there are a few other, like the Batman one is okay.
Batman and Robin's great. You have Battletoads, Double Dragon. You have shit like that, and a lot of them are also on the Super NES, maybe slightly different. So
yeah, so
is what it is.
I would love to hear though, legit. If you guys do have something, let us know. All right, and now for our last beer of the night. Just like the lemon shandy that we just finished, we're moving on to their grapefruit shandy.
I will say, finishing up that lemon shandy, I mean, not that it's hurting, but it's not feeling... It's a little... The sweetness sits in the stomach. I'll say that.
Yeah, and it's also a weird combination to go from an IPA to a shandy. Like,
that's also true.
That's a terrible idea.
Can't wait for work tomorrow.
Now this is going to be even more interesting, so... Not as bitter as I thought it was going to be.
No, not at all. This is very smooth.
This is actually sweeter than the lemon.
It's sweeter, but not as, like, overpowering.
Yeah.
Because normally, like, a grapefruit beer is just, like... It's almost like biting into a grapefruit, where it's just, like, your lips pucker and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where this is just like, it's like they just took the juice and blended it almost like 70-30 with like beer and grapefruit juice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay.
Not it's sedimenty, but it's not as bad.
I would probably actually say this over the lemon.
Nah, on initial drinking, I would say that too.
All right. So, another bit that we did, I don't think we did last podcast, but at least a podcast before.
Yeah, we missed it last time.
Yeah, so our intent is to keep trying to bring this back just because it's a fun little goofy topic, and we know other people have done it.
And the last one went long, too, so we didn't even really need to do it that time.
Yeah. Going back to video game cover art, just us talking about, like, what do you think? And I mentioned earlier in the podcast, talking about, you know, if you go back and you want to collect games, PC old box styles, I love those, similar to the PS1 big box games.
So same.
They're always fun to look at and they look great.
It's so unnecessary too, and it's part of the gaudiness that just makes it extra awesome.
One of my favorite things is when I would collect the PC games is when they would have the fold out upper outside tab, and they would have a little bit more. But you know, I said I always used to collect games from thrift stores. I mean, I still do, but this beauty. And I'm going to try to adjust to the light.
There you go.
Yeah, that seems to be okay. Road Rash for the PC. I got it for $1.97. Complete in box. Has instructions. Has, I think, a poster too.
Yeah, didn't it have like a map or poster or some shit?
Yeah, it's a poster. Yeah, here it is. As you can tell, I still haven't done anything with it. But full-blown poster. $1.97, thrift store.
Yeah, but I got this after we went through the whole series. So and this is a port of the 3DO one that got ported to the PC and the PS1. So
yeah, so one of the things that always blew my mind with Road Rash, and I picked this specifically because I can remember being a kid and seeing this and thinking like, like not ever knowing a single thing, because this is before I didn't have subscriptions to game magazines. I didn't have... I'm just going to try and leave this. Wow, there's no good way for you guys to see it, so I'll just put the picture up. But for me and Jim, we are looking at the box. I just right away, I see two motorcycles, and I'm like, dude's holding a chain. Like, that's kind of weird. Like, could he hit him? That concept was foreign to me, so just seeing that was awesome. Turning to the back of it, and yeah, you confirm. Oh, you're hitting people. They're flying off bikes. It looked awesome, but even as a kid, one thing that fucked with me is the chain looks, because it is fake, at least from what I can tell.
Brian, please.
But what do you think? Because you can take a closer look of it.
Please do not break the kayfabe that is going on here.
I know, but isn't it abnormally, like they put a glow to it?
They put like a glow and like swoosh marks coming out of it, like some After Effects 1995 thing going on here.
And once again, I'm not trying to criticize the time, because the picture is a legit-ass picture of two guys on bikes, presumably racing. But, yeah, like, I don't know if the guy in the picture was actually holding something smaller.
Or he might just be making, like, a full fist. Yeah.
It's tough to tell fully. And, you know, unfortunately, I know in the video you're going to watch, it's probably just the thumbnail is pretty small. But go online, take a high-res look at this. The chain is so goofy looking that was one thing. Even as a kid, I was like, man, I've seen some like Photoshop shit from back in the 90s that's looked okay. This one, it gets the point across, but it's kind of goofy.
No, I mean, for like what it's trying to convey as a cover, you could argue it's a perfect cover. Like, it's just a picture of two people on a bike, but they're doing the wheelie, so it's implying the speed. Guy's got the fake ass chain there, so, you know, oh, he's got a chain chasing another guy. Maybe there's some kind of car combat here. And it gets the job done. And at the bottom with this version, network and modem play. Holy shit.
Yeah, well, yes.
Biggest crime of us not having a Road Rash since goddamn 2000 is the fact that we've never been able to play it online.
And
don't tell me Road Redemption, because I hear it's a turd and it's not by the same team, so whatever.
I do love, though, even the symbol for the Road Rash itself be like in front of a kind of a star-looking thing.
Yeah.
One thing, and this is where I was always torn, and it always seemed like racing and games like this, they use a real picture. Something about that did make the game seem like, maybe more legit isn't the word I'm looking for. Maybe it is.
Like something that could happen?
No, like when you were a kid, if you were passing, like, did you always know, like, I know what game I'm getting, or did you kind of peruse the cover arts and say, "Oh, this one looks kind of cool"?
I'm trying to think of what made me get Road Rash when I was a kid, because it's not like my friends had it. It was just, it must have been the cover art of just like two guys chasing each other. I think the first Road Rash, and I might be wrong, but I think on the cover is one guy punching another as they're both on motorcycles.
On the Genesis?
Yeah.
Let me check it out. I can't remember.
So there is something there, and you just show a little bit of combat with racing. And I was never, well, I played a lot of racing games as a kid, but I wouldn't say I was like an aficionado. So, wait, hit the wrong button there, bro. So, it must have been just that they were always very simple covers, but it always got the job done. Except for Jailbreak with that just guy with like the fucking Viking horns, terrible cover. No wonder no one bought it. Oh, here we go. So, the first one, it's the cop character pushing another guy off. And Road Rash 2 is when they're punching each other.
Yeah. So,
it's a striking cover.
But I would say...
Battery design.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, obviously I think this does look better than the Genesis cover. It's a little more vivid, and I'm not even trying to take a dig at Genesis.
No, yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I was asking a question that when you see...
Well, yeah, it's more of the bikes, because like the Genesis one, half the thing's taken up just with the name.
With the name. But when you saw picture, like legit actual photos versus something that was created, did that ever give you a different impression of a video game? Like once again, I'm using the term more legit.
Well, you know what? Weirdly enough, maybe, because like famously one of like the worst ones with like a live action guy is Strider on the Genesis. Awful cover. But for some reason
it attracted you.
It attracted me to it. And yeah, I think it was cheap at the time when I got it too, but still, it was like, oh, I'll take a flyer on this.
Yeah, I think part of me, from afar, before you notice the change is so terrible, you're like, damn, these guys took this photo just for this.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, whether they use stock photo, who knows? But that made me feel like, oh shit, this game has to be good. Like they put thought into it. And then, I don't know. I just, but this is what you would always come to expect from PC games and these big boxes. You would have much more detailed art. And in general, I feel like just a ton more effort was put into it, which is part of the reason why I was willing to pay $197 for this. But honestly, if this had been like $5 with everything in there, I would have got it at least. So yeah, I think that was just kind of a more interesting one.
And at the very least, it's a really cool shelf piece. So
yeah, and I think in the future,
like dumbass me, like. I keep waiting to see the PS Mini go down to like $25. I'm like, for $25, I'll buy a turd. I won't even hack it. I'll just like be a thing to have.
So that moves us to the next topic. I'm actually glad you just brought that up. So if you guys have any thoughts on the Road Rash, specifically the PC, let us know what you think. If you saw it as a kid, especially, because I think seeing it older, you might already want the cover.
If you ever played it online, actually, please let us know, because
that would be fascinating.
That's the thing that we couldn't get to do when we did our Road Rash retrospective.
So we covered very, very briefly the PS Mini. Like I think we did. I could be wrong.
We mentioned it and how much of a disaster it kind of was.
So here's my question. I know it's gotten panned.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that it's a small amount of games. And
it's not even a small amount, it's just the games they picked too, and the fact that like half of them are the PAL versions.
Okay, so would you say, and we know take price out of it, because obviously I think we've established that
coming out at $100, woohoo!
I think,
ooh lord,
honestly, there hasn't been a mini version of these consoles. I think hasn't been slightly overpriced. Super NES is arguably your best value because of the type of games it had on.
And it comes with 2 controllers.
Yes.
No, I'll say the NES one, slightly overpriced because 1 controller and, like, it gave you a balloon fight and fucking Pac-Man and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, the Super NES, I think, is your best bang for your buck for any of these. I'd be interested in getting the Commodore one, but you never see it around just because I've never touched a Commodore before. So for me, that would be a cool thing of, like, a starting off point for a system.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that. Like all these,
even though I hear the controller's awful, but
all these crowdfunded systems, like what were the most important ones that?
Like the Ouya?
Well, no, even the
Coleco Chameleon.
That just do a mini version. Stop trying to do this complete rehash. Sell it for cheap. Do the emulator. And that would bring people into, I think, a more retro. And I know, obviously, some of these systems me and you have talked about, like the Spectrum, all these are more UK based.
Right.
If you want the US to really get invested, like you got to give them something they can buy, and they'd be like, oh, they have some pretty good games.
Yeah, and like especially say they release like an Amiga Mini.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one I'm interested in because, as I told you, it's more the Amiga CD, but I looked at some of the games, and the Amiga was pretty goddamn impressive.
Yeah, no, graphically it was impressive, and I mean, like you'd obviously, I don't know shit about the Amiga, but like you'd throw one of the Turricans on there, and like any of the other staples, whatever those are, kind of deal like that. So that would be cool, but for more niche systems like that, especially like that, you'd have to drop the price of like $50 for people to take a flyer on it. Like nostalgia will go so far, but I think especially in the States, like the microcomputers will be a little bit more of a tough sell.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So do you think one of the symptoms of why the PS Mini failed?
It was just a cash grab, that's why.
Well, obviously. But even if it hit every gem, and it did have some solid games on there.
It had some solid ones on there.
Like, you know,
but then even the solid ones they had on there, you're playing it through the PAL settings, so it's...
Which I still don't get, like, why they would do that.
Laziness, cheapness, I don't know.
But no, hear me out. So say they kept the price where it was. They added a few more gems, if you will. Because what was it, 20 games?
I think... I forget.
So assume...
I think it's like 20.
Assume non-PAL versions, regular versions.
Right.
Assume same price, a few more gems. What we talked about earlier, this generation just
Analog
aged,
6 on the controllers.
Yeah, like this particular gen aged very poorly.
Right.
Do you think no matter what, like we might realize, like when you get something like this, like, oh yeah, these games just didn't age. Like some of the games on there age fine, like Tekken 3. You're never like,
right.
To me, that's still one of the best fighting games ever. But you look at some of these other games, and you're like, we've blown Resident Evil enough.
Right.
But I recognize that a brand new kid who picks it up today is not going to appreciate it for shit.
No.
And same for Siphon Filter, same for Metal Gear Solid. Those are good games, but you compare them to newer ones, and you're like,
Well, I mean, any of these mini consoles at the end of the day, they're all just nostalgia boxes. So it's playing off people our age who grew up with this shit. So it's not geared towards young kids to try to bring them in.
Yeah, but you didn't think the NES and Super NES was also geared towards people who were nostalgic, but they were getting their kids into it via these systems?
It's easier to get them into it. Like, there's PlayStation fanboys who are probably trying to get their kids to play the games on this thing with them.
Yeah.
Shit like that. Why it didn't have analog sticks for Ridge Racer Type 4 type games, I don't never know. But, like, the biggest failure for this is all the famous things. The PAL games, the lack of analog sticks, the fact, like, it was such a cheap, lazy cash grab, like, they couldn't even give you a wall dongle for the USB charging cord. And even that, you couldn't even plug it into the USB port of your TV like you could, say, some of the other mini systems.
Yeah.
You had to plug it into, like, a random wall dongle. Like, just dumb shit like that. And then you throw on games in there like Mr. Driller and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, shit like that. Like, games that people don't go, oh, God, when I think PlayStation Classic, this is what I think of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the list now.
Like Final Fantasy VII, obviously. Battle Arena to Shinden, who cares? Cool Border 2, really, who cares? Destruction Derby, it has its fans, who cares? Grand Theft Auto, the original, I personally love it. I think that's one of the PAL games, but for a lot of people out there, there's a lot of people who don't like the original two games. So, Jumping Flash, cool that they put that on there. Metal Gear Solid, very good idea. Mr. Driller, again, who cares? Oddworld, a classic, it has its fans. I think it should be on there. Rayman.
They spelled it wrong.
They spelled it wrong in the article. Resident Evil Director's Cut, obviously. Revelations Persona. What?
No, that is a good game.
Okay. Ridge Racer Type 4 definitely should be on there. Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo.
That's something that sounds like you'd like.
Yeah, it's a puzzle game.
Yeah, which is why you'd like it.
I enjoy it, and it's cool that they put a puzzle game on there, but so fine. But like Siphon Filter, okay. Tekken 3 definitely should be on there. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, why? Twisted Metal, why not Twisted Metal 2? Wild Arms, good pick. But, you know, you're missing the Tomb Raiders, the Spyros, the Symphony of the Nights, Crash Bandicoots. Like, you're missing the mascots. Even for the RPG dorks, they're missing a lot of the games that people loved on there, so.
Yeah, so I'm like you. I don't think I'll ever. I finally broke down and got the Super NES Mini because although we've talked many times, I'm fine playing games, emulate it, because I like to play games. But that was a system. The games on there were so undeniably my favorite ones from the system.
Right.
Except for, like, it was missing a small amount. I couldn't pass that up, and I think I got it on sale.
And Nintendo put actual care into their minis. Like, they made it a good system.
No, they absolutely did. But I don't think I'll ever, unless it was like $10, go out and get the NES Mini. And that's not a knock on what they had in there.
Right.
That's just me at this point, especially, and you could say the same thing with Super NES. With the Switch, you could technically have NES games on your Switch.
Right.
But I'm like you with the PlayStation Mini. I think I might get it just because
I would get it at the $25 mark.
25, yeah. No, that's what do you
Like,
think it's down to right now?
Right.
Let's say
Right now you can officially it's down to 60, but random Walmarts, depending on where you go or random stores, it can depend on the store. I've seen some selling it for 40. I've seen some selling it for even less than that, but none of them around us have. I've been looking, but.
Well, there's no clear buying choice, but you can get as low as 45
on Amazon.
From Amazon.
Yeah, which is still too high for me, but like I remember when it first came out, GameStop had them, like, and they had a shitload of them. And if you bought one new at like the $100 when it came out, holy shit price, they would give you like a $30 in-store credit just to like incentivize you right away.
So let me ask you, as someone who is a collector and you like certain things like
And
this,
like even for me who has no need at all for the NES Mini and the Super NES Mini, I bought them both. So
well, of course you did,
right,
because you should be burned out. You got a problem,
obviously.
No, so let me ask you, someone who is much more of a collector than me. We've talked about the PS5 potentially being able to backplay all the PlayStation stuff.
Right.
Would you rather, I mean, if that happens, that's going to happen regardless. Would you rather something like that, you can play all your old systems and cool, or would you rather have something that is like a revamped mini that they did perfect, they had the perfect controllers, all the other things you had an issue with, and they just kept releasing, like, here's another disc of another 20 games. Here's like you basically could just keep getting more and more classics for this type of system. What would you prefer?
I'm going to give my answer, and I know my answer is wrong on this. I actually would prefer the PS5 with all the backwards compatibility because I'm such a collector and shit like that. Mm-hmm. It's a way for me to
still have the original collection. And
still get value out of having those things. Because if you can, the smart thing to do would be to have a preset thing with all the games on it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have this dumb shit. And discs, you have disc ride, blah, 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 blah. But it'd still be a thing where, like, I can pull it off there. And obviously I have ways to play all my shit still on newer TVs. That's not a problem for me. But just in general, to have the easiest way to have them through HDMI, upscaled to 4K. Like, it still gives you that. It would still give me the value of out of my own investment. So
I think the only value I see in these mini consoles, if they get done right and they're the right price,
right?
What we were talking about earlier, like
it's for people, not me.
Well, no, I'm saying collectors in general. Like, if somebody were like, you know what, it wasn't my generation. I want to get into PlayStation. They know nothing of emulation. They don't want to try to buy the digital copies.
Right.
Like, that might be a decent way to kind of dip your toes in the water.
Right. And it depends on the library, too. Like, for a lot of people out there, you're not going to go out there and spend the money on fucking Earthbound. Obviously, you can emulate it, or you can buy the Super NES Mini for $80 and get 20 other games with that $200 game loose, and then there you go. You have your way to play it.
So do you think there's any chance that all these companies doing this, other than the fact that they know they can make money from it,
right,
is kind of response to recognizing the pies, the Retron 5s, the emulation? Like, they just recognize, like, people have a want to play these old games.
Yeah.
And as long as you make it convenient and especially upscalable to HDMI, because that is the other biggest problem with the old systems is more and more TVs as they come out, you're not even going to have the option to play them on there.
No, at most systems at this point, most TVs, a lot of them at least, it's only going to come with, you're lucky if you're going to have one row of component input.
Exactly.
And then it's just going to be all HDMI.
So
unless you buy an upscaler, if you're that kind of guy, you're going to have just something that's ready to go.
Yeah.
And these are just, you plug it into any TV and it's going to work.
So I don't see a chance that ever slows down. I think you keep seeing it expand it because there will come a time in theory that there won't be any more, no matter how well you mean, unless you have a super fanatical person who's willing to fix it, like the old TVs. You're not going to have them anymore.
Right.
Like, at all. So, like you said, you buy upscalers or...
Yeah, and like...
It dies off.
Right. And it's all niche markets. Like, not everyone's going to go out there and buy a FrameMeister OSSC or RetroTink kind of thing like that.
I need to fucking lower the price of FrameMeister. I want a FrameMeister, but that shit's way too expensive.
I have a RetroTink, so I went with that route.
Yeah, but no.
But FrameMeister does everything, but yeah, they all have pros and cons.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, you're not going to spend $350 on it unless... why would any normal? It's for normies.
No, that's definitely true.
It's for that guy who's like an accountant who's like, oh yeah, I remember playing Mega Man, and they go out and they buy a system where they can plug Mega Man in and play right away.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's interesting. We do legit like hearing what you guys have to say about this.
I mean, that can even go into like why the Switch is like my most played console right now. It's the convenience factor. I can be sitting with my family in the living room, put my daughter to bed, wife can watch whatever she wants on the TV, and I can just pick the Switch up, sit on my couch, and just play on a screen right in front of my face.
Yeah, you know the thing that doing that with the Switch, though, that has happened to me, and obviously I know you can put it into the TV and play it regular.
Yeah.
Because I do that so often, if I go to the bathroom, I'm probably bringing a Switch in with me. Like you said, if... my wife's with the kids, and if I do have some time, maybe I'll play a little bit. But it makes me appreciate when I do sit down and play a legit console more. I will say, like for as much, like, since I got my Switch, like, that's been my main console. But for, like, even doing these Resident Evil games, like, going through 5 and going through Revelations like I am right now, like, I have to go down and spend time in the game room and, like, actually sit down, like, a good old-fashioned kind of gaming session. That's what I'm saying. It, like, makes those... It almost makes you appreciate that more. And it actually, what it makes me do is underappreciate the Switch games. Like, I've noticed, like, I've been playing through Breath of the Wild. You know what I don't do with my Switch games? Finish them. Well, yeah, I only have the 2, and although I've unlocked most of the shit, at least the main, I unlocked all the fighters in Smash. I did that too, yeah. But I'm going through the light world, and don't get me started on that bullshit. Because, like, there's no point to unlock these fucking... They should have done Subspace Emissary or, like, something like that again. But, I'm going through Breath of the Wild, and I keep trying to ask myself, like, am I enjoying this game for the fact that it's a game, or is it just something that's really fun for me to pass the time because it's convenient? Like, versus I could be spending time dicking around on my phone or whatever, what we used to do. Right. Or, like, I'm sitting here playing this game. It's actually tough for me to recognize if that is, and I'm only maybe 4 or 5 hours into the game. Right. It's fine. I do have my nitpicks about it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm like, I think I'm undervaluing the game because I realize it's just a convenience thing. I'll pick it up. I'm not playing it for hours on end. But like you said, when I'm sitting down and forced to play these Resident Evils, like, I'm appreciating more, like, oh shit, because I'm more invested. Right. So I feel like does the Switch, keep promoting this idea of gaming on the fly, which you can never get super invested in the same way I feel like you used to. Maybe, because, like, I haven't finished Mario Odyssey yet, and it's a great game. The only game I guess I can say that I've beaten, I got through all of, like, Sonic Mania once without getting all the Cast Emeralds, so I didn't even play the super secret last stage kind of deal. But, like, I played through it, and that's only, like, a 4-hour game if you just play through the story. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Which keeps bringing me back to, and I know there's people that love Odyssey, they love Breath of the Wild, they love these games. Does it make sense for Nintendo just to keep down this path of, like, just the more mobile convenience? As long as it sells, yeah. Yeah, because it's like, rely on the third parties that go to all consoles give you the all-encompassing game. Mm-hmm. Not, once again, not saying Breath of the Wild isn't. And not saying the Switch doesn't have them, but it's still just like, I don't know, I guess the semi-mobile portion of it still makes me think like, oh, it's my pick-up-and-play console. That's what it is. Exactly. So... it's not your number one console because of the games. It's your number one console, like you just said, convenience. It's my number one out of convenience. I like the games I have on it, but it's still my number one out of convenience. But I honestly believe that if the Switch is the only console I own that I hate the fact that I'm a physical collector. It would be so much more easy to just have it all on the hard drive. Yeah, yeah. But here's the deal. Like, if you could have everything you have on your Xbox and do that mobily, I think you'd be playing that a lot more.
Oh, I'd be playing the Xbox
Switch
more.
ones. Yeah. So that's where it's like, is that good or bad for them? I mean, from a sales point, obviously.
For right now, it obviously works.
Yeah.
For this generation, it's going to work. For next generation, who knows?
That's the only thing I think is like, and Nintendo's smart. They obviously, from a business standpoint, know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
But are they going to go down a path where it's like, like, remember Xbox for when they first announced One, they were like, it's online all the time. And then they were like, oh shit, we fucked up. No.
They never recovered from that E3. Yeah.
So is Nintendo, do you think, going to go down a path that's like just convenience all the time? Like, it doesn't matter so much about, like, you'll have fun playing. I'm not saying their games aren't fun, but like what gamers I feel like love about games is how invested you can get. And I feel like I still, even in Breath of the Wild, which is an investment game, I'm not I'm playing it just to go through the motions.
Yeah, like when I was playing through Breath of the Wild on the Wii U, like it's, I guess to give it a different thing, like I was playing on the Wii U, so it was kind of like the proto Switch, obviously, because you could take the tablet somewhat far from the console. You couldn't take it everywhere.
Yeah. So
I would take it, I'd play, and I'd probably put a good 20 hours into it. Never beat it or anything like that, but didn't even come close.
Yeah.
But then eventually I was just like, no, I'm just going to move on to something else. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a thing with the game design itself, or, I mean, it could just be a thing with the game design too.
And I'll be honest,
it's kind of a barren game unless you're going through the exact story missions.
And that's one thing I want to point out, and this can be our final topic, but I know Breath of the Wild is 3 years old now?
Yeah, 2. Switch just turned 2. Came out.
Okay, so 2 years old. We're late to the game. But, man, playing through it now, I can't help but right away. My comparison for that game is Skyrim. And so far, I'm, like, severely unimpressed with, like you said, the Baron is kind of an issue. And I realize there's a lot you can do. But I also, there's so much things I could nitpick about. Like, I get it. Weapons break. But goddamn the rate at which some of them break.
So, yeah, I think people bitch a little bit too much about that.
Because my thing, and I know you're someone, just like in Fallout New Vegas, you love the over micromanaging system.
Yeah. Which
is basically what this game forces you to do. And, like, the methods for, like, getting more inventory, like giving that little dude seeds. And
the Korok seeds. Yeah.
Which are, like, cool, but then you only get one space at a time. It's very specific. So it's, like, it really drags it out. And, like, yeah, you can fill up your spaces really quick. And if you want to play with different weapons, right away, like, you're like, I can't because I don't have enough space. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to waste it on this. So, I don't know. There's a lot of that game that I find weird. And this is another weird nitpick. Why don't any of the motherfuckers talk? Some of them have very little dialogue that they actually speak out loud.
Zelda tradition.
I get it, but like at this point with the Switch, it's like, fucking talk.
Well, you know what? That's a double-edged sword because everyone criticized Zelda's voice in Breath of the Wild too.
Isn't he supposed to be a child? Like a teenager?
Right, Zelda's a girl.
Oh yeah, Link. You know who the fuck I mean.
Well, yeah, Link doesn't even talk, but like. Yeah, like
people have made fun of Link's voice because of the TV show.
That's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah,
but yeah, like with Zelda's voice, they're like, well, what did you want it to sound like? It's that whole thing where it's like, well, not like that. Yeah. So people are gonna.
I know you're never gonna make everyone happy, and
Zelda fans are the easiest fucking thing to like cater to and placate to. They just slap that shit up. And I like Zelda games. Don't get me wrong, but the fandom for it.
The biggest problem I find with Zelda fans is I feel like
they think it's deeper than it is.
Yes, and I feel like you could feed them anything, and it's like it's great no matter what. And obviously, I've seen plenty of memes that make fun of some of the older games and some of the annoyances.
Or even the ones that make fun of, like, say, Skyward Sword and shit like that. Yeah,
yeah.
Like, they don't love all of them,
but like, and this is where I fundamentally have an issue. I'm like, and I know I dick ride Skyrim too hard, but I keep looking back like, if you compare that to basically any Zelda game. It's like,
well, Breath of the Wild Skyrim feels like a world where Breath of the Wild feels like objectives filled with like busy work.
Yes.
And I like the busy work in it. Like I like the fact that like it's easier to explore anything you want in Breath of the Wild. Exploration's way better than it is in Skyrim.
Well, for sure, yeah. But once again, you're
But
exploring.
then again, what are you exploring?
You're exploring nothing.
You're
versus,
exploring caves with a couple mazes, and then
Yeah.
you're trying to get to the next story thing.
Essentially, it's like, a whole bunch of, and I know I'm gonna butcher her name, but the Babokins.
Oh, the Bobbikins or whatever.
Bobbikin.
Yeah.
And it's like, I defeat the 5 of them, and I get the chest open. And I feel like I just keep doing that over and over. And it's like, I'm climbing. But I didn't get enough stamina yet. Now I fall. Now I do the glide. Or I go into and do a puzzle for one of these orbs. And some of them are interesting, but some of them are so gimmicky because it's just like, adjust your switch. And I don't know if it was the same on the Wii U.
Yeah, they had the same puzzles. I forget if you had to move the tablet or if you could just use the sticks.
The one was all about... like
it's been a while.
I literally had to turn it away from me and guess that it was in the right place. And then the only other issue is, like, I didn't realize it. I was like, why is the frigging aiming with the bow and arrow so terrible in this game? And then I realized, like, as I'm doing this, I'm moving, and you can do it with your...
Oh, the gyroscope shit, yeah.
And I'm like... And I'm sure there's a setting I can turn that off.
Probably.
But that's something... It's a gimmick. I don't need a gimmick in a game. Like, if your gimmick is one of the reasons why you think your game is great, I don't think it's a good game. And I'm not saying it's a bad game, but yeah, it's just not... I don't know. I still have gone back to Skyrim way too many times. And like you said, it's a world. Like,
right.
Even though I've seen the same friggin' Whiterun a million times, I still love going back and I'm like, ooh, maybe I could play it like this.
Yeah, and even more so saying like the Fallout games, like the little camps and
Yes.
like the little towns, like that's a town with people in it with like voice and script.
I think Bethesda should get the rights to Legend of Zelda and make a Legend of Zelda game.
That would be interesting to see.
Yeah. Of course there'll be plenty of bugs and Bethesda is obviously not invaluable because
Bethesda
76.
Bethesda needs a comeback after 76.
And we talked earlier about games I need to go on sale. I will get that when it's like $10, $5.
I would get it for cheap.
Yeah.
But it's still like 40.
Yeah, it's still way too high. And I know it dropped really quick. What was that game that recently came out that...
Actually, it's funny because like to go back to like Game Pass that we talked about, Just Cause 4 is already on Game Pass 3 months after it came out. So we're getting to the point here where like these streaming services are getting these games quicker and quicker. So
Yeah.
it's almost going to be the point where why would you ever buy a game new and not just wait a couple months?
Yeah, it's exactly what we talked about. Like, there will come a point. Every game will be like, it's available right away. So it's like, do I buy it new? Do I even buy a physical copy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's companies going to evaluate. Does it make sense to keep producing them physically?
It almost, well, that's why the Xbox, they're coming out in, what is it, May, I think, with like the Xbox X Slim. It's like some stupid kind of string
That
of
doesn't
words.
do CD, right? It's
No,
just-
there's no disc. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we all knew was going to be coming from these consoles, but
Makes sense. I honestly...
future's now. And actually, the only games really, like, say, like on the Switch, like, yeah, they come in the carts, but you'll have big gigabyte updates. The only games where the whole game's encapsulated on there is like all the indie games that get ported to it physically.
Yeah. I don't know.
That's another thing that chaps my ass. Goddamn Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now, I cashed in all my E-points to get it discounted. And, what did they announce today? Oh, Limited Run Games is going to have a run of Curse of the Moon. So you can have it
That's
physical.
what you get.
That's what you get for ever buying digital. That's what you get.
So...
Physical forever?
I know we hopped around a lot of points, but let us know what you think about, these digital games, about the Switch, about Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. We kind of had a little random...
We went tangent to tangent. I recognize that. I actually can't even remember what we started with. I know PS Mini, but either way...
Oh, yeah.
Thank you guys for listening again. All right, so, as we're wrapping up, I guess... What do you think about the Susquehanna Beer companies? And it is weird with the Shandies. They are a little sweeter than regular beer.
A little early for these summery beers, but...
Yeah.
The Hopcelerator, the IPA, good IPA. Nothing special, but smooth, enjoyable. Yeah. If you like IPAs, you'll probably like this. Unless you like the ones that are like overly hoppy and hard and shit like that. But for more casual audience, it's a good one. The... Shady Spot. Okay. This is the one that like upset my tummy a little because it's almost too sweet. As you're drinking it, the sweetness doesn't get me, and it's very drinkable.
Yeah.
Good lemony flavor, but once it sits in your stomach, like you said, it could be
It would
because
be
of the
much better
mixture.
for summer.
It'll be way better for summer.
Yeah.
It's more refreshing. Cold winter, not the best time for it. But the grapefruit one, I was kind of impressed with. Because, like I said, when we first started drinking it, normally grapefruit beer, you're just like, this is the sunny spot. You're just like, you get that pucker, back of your throat kind of grabbing kind of feeling. And with this one, you really didn't. It just tasted like it without being overwhelming. And I feel pretty good after it. We didn't do the bits.
No, but it's actually ironic that, I mean, we're not going to go through all of them, but the grapefruit one is right away. It says, if anything says summertime, it's a pleasantly sweet tart flavor of ripe grapefruit.
March 7th, summertime.
This is what's interesting. I bought this variety pack 2 weeks ago. So, and beer stores always do this. They tend to release things early. I didn't even look. I just saw a variety pack. There was 5 different beer types. So I was like, oh, shit, I know Susquehanna Beer. I didn't realize they were going to have summer beers in there. So that's kind of interesting.
Little odd.
Me and Jim have talked about this in the past. So, like, they'll start releasing pumpkin beers as early as August. They'll release winter beers as early as, like, October. Like, they do shit way too early. So this is just another example. They didn't even bring out the friggin' springtime. They went right to summer with this one.
People like to say with, like, spring training in baseball how it seems like it starts early and earlier every year.
Yeah.
All these, seasonal beers always seem like they're coming around earlier and earlier.
Yeah. The Hop Accelerator is the only one I would presume
that's probably
year-round.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if you are in the PA area, I do have 2 other varieties of this. I can say I've never had a beer from Susquehanna that I didn't like. I believe they are the ones that make the Blood Orange IPA, and that is probably my favorite beer from them. I think I don't want to. It's either called like Blood Trail or Blood Orange Trail. Has like a big like what is it called? The Mexican like Day dos Muertos, like Day of the Dead skull style.
Yeah.
But no, that's so all their beers have always been really solid. We don't get as quite often in Philly, so when I see them, I always pick up a case. But yeah, other than that, guys, we appreciate when you send us questions. If you ever have a topic you want us to cover, if there's anything you want to bring up.
If you have a topic you want us to cover, the best way to do that is patreon.com/DrinkABeerandPlayAGame. And for the low price of $2 per month, a pittance, some could say. Barely more than, Nintendo Online for the Switch. Barely more. You could have the ability to give us a question and answer every week. You could go straight forward, or you can just try to throw us off the rails like good old Game Whisperer does.
And in some cases, maybe if your question sparks an interest, we can turn it into a video.
As we've done before.
With the Blind Mario run.
Yep. And also, don't forget that if, say you don't have the time to watch an hour and a half, 2-hour video, we also upload these to iTunes. So while you're there, make sure to leave a review. It helps the page. It helps get more eyes. It helps the algorithms. So if you want to help the page out, just leave whatever. Just say 5 stars, hello. I don't care. Just boost our numbers.
Always
just
boost our numbers. Yeah.
Never less than 5, though.
So thank you guys. And, as always, cheers.
Cheers.